Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, thanks for tuning into this podcast. Hi, my name is Tommy Maloney, and I'm doing a podcast in collaboration with District 26 Toastmasters and Blending the Family, which is my podcast. Once again, my name is Tommy Maloney, and I want to present a special interview with Ed Tate, international speaker, 2000 Toastmasters International Champion. He's also part of the National Speaker Association. He's a CSP, meaning he's really good at his craft. Anyway, this special podcast episode, I interview Ed at the Toastmaster District 26 Spring Conference. And the context is Ed did a presentation about behind the curtain with the 2016 International Toastmaster Speaking Champion, Darren Tate. And like I said, we get to go behind the scenes on how Darren's winning speech was crafted within 48 hours. And you're going to hear information about that. You'll also hear Ed talks about or mentions Margaret, and that's Margaret Page, who's on the board of directors for Toastmasters International. A very lovely lady. I had a great time interviewing her as well. So get ready. No grammarian report. I don't want to hear it. Get ready to hear this interview with just a wonderful human being, Ed Tate, international speaker, man of mystery.
And I says, don't let tiny things take you out of the game. You know, what's your game? What's your goal? What's your desire, etc. Don't let others take you out of your game. So it's a basic philosophy I live by.
Welcome home, by the way, Ed Tate.
Thank you. Man, look at this. It was snowing like crazy yesterday, and it is the prettiest blue sky I've ever seen in my life. Ever. I mean, I've been all over the world, and I've never seen a sky this blue any other place.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous day.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not snowing.
Well, just wait 24 hours, man.
Yeah, the weather. I like to call it the bipolar weather. Because you just, like you said, 10 minutes, it's going to be 80 degrees, and next thing you know, it's
no evidence of the snow. There's no evidence of the snow anywhere.
In your presentation today, TED Talk versus Toastmasters.
Okay.
Do you think because of the popularity of TED that more and more, I'll say, wannabe speakers think that they're going to get to that level that soon?
With regard to the TED Talk stage?
Yeah.
I would be speaking anecdotally.
Okay.
I have no evidence to support
Can
this.
you use it in English?
No. I have no scientific proof.
There you go.
Yeah. There is no denying the popularity of TED Talks. And the popularity of TED Talks is in corporate America. Like earlier this year with Humana. Mm-hmm. I did several TED Talk inspired talks, 10-minute presentations. However, I was paid my full fee. What a country.
Yes.
So there's a part of me thinking, like, I'm loving this TED Talk thing, because I'm doing smaller bites and things of that nature. And again, there's no doubt, there's a lot of people who are aspiring. For example, aspiring speakers are aspiring. Hey, I want to do a TED Talk. I want to do a TED Talk. I want to be a TED Talk. And I like that because it's bringing more people into the world of speaking. It's bringing more people into the world of spreading their messages. And ultimately, it brings more people into Toastmasters. So I'm all for it. It's very, very, it's a popular movement. And that being said, you asked me a very interesting question. And the question was, are people expecting to get to that level sooner? And the answer is yes, they are. What I went through back in 1998, 1999, 2000, where there was this, you had to earn it, you had to pay your dues, etc. Well, the truth of the matter is, we live in a day and age where that's no longer the case.
I want to stop you there because you do bring up a great point, and that is free to feed. And I really do believe what you're saying is that that's an old school message, that you have to do this for free.
Yeah, I was told you have to do it 100 times for free before you ever ask for your first check. Now, I'm going to tell you, frankly, I don't subscribe to that philosophy. And the reason I don't subscribe to that philosophy is Alan Weiss aphorism: the first sale is to yourself. Someone asked me this today. What was your first paid speech? It was for the Lakewood Community Center here in the Denver metro area. It was for $50. They wanted me to do a 30-minute presentation. And I was going to be teaching teenagers who were actually the coaches or the leaders for kids who are in grade school for the summer. Okay? And I was just going to give them a 30-minute presentation. So the moment I agreed to that, they said, hey, well, can you do this? Can you do this? So this 30-minute presentation turned into a half day. And then they tried to cut my fee, my $50 fee. They tried to cut my $50 fee to $25. I held strong. Now, my background is this. I've sold $500 million worth of computers. I've co-created one business unit that became a $260+ million one, and another one that was actually sold for $1.2 billion. So I get this $50 check. I'm in the parking lot, and I say to myself, and I spent, I think, 69 hours of work went into this presentation. And I said to myself, I will never work this hard for this little money again. So in that parking lot, I raised my fee to $2,500. I noticed two things. Number one, no one complained. There was like no fee police that came after me. Number two, I got a higher quality customer and client. I said to myself, I think I'm onto something here. So my third presentation, I raised my fee up to $5,000.
What was the time frame between the
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Wow.
I said my very next speech, I'm going to raise up to $5,000. And then 2 weeks after, I think it was 30 days after that, I raised it up to $7,500. Now, I had altitude sickness. Because at that point in time, $7,500 for an hour, wow, that's, I can never tell my family about this.
Right.
And so I stayed there for about 4 or 5 years. Today I charge $15,000. The first sale is to yourself, and it's all about that value that you provide. Now, in the speaking industry, I'm kind of on the low end. I don't know if you've been following the media lately, but Mr. Obama just got $400,000.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Reagan still is in the Guinness Book of World Records for a 20-minute speech where he was paid, I think, $4.1 or $4.2 million to the Japanese government. So it's the value you bring to the marketplace, and there's someone who's always out there who's willing to pay that fee.
But somebody like, I don't know, moi.
Yep.
The first problem I have is, even though I have a lot of experience, it's getting out of my own way. And one of the things I've learned through a gentleman named David Newman.
Yes. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
But on his course that I'm taking, he does the salt and pepper analogy. And here it is. When somebody's asking you for your fee, us normal people cringe at talking about money. So the way David gets you over that hump is salt, pepper, $7,500. Salt, pepper, $7,500. Ed, what's your speaking fee? Oh, $7,500. Without even hesitating. New speakers who feel they do have the value and are ready to make that leap cringe at that because they don't know how to do the business side of selling and saying, like in your example, $50, I'm a paid speaker now. And then it's getting that next client, salt, pepper, $2,500.
And again, I'm going to quote another Alan Weiss aphorism: the first sale is to yourself. Unless you believe it, nobody will. So number one is it begins with you. You have to believe that you provide that value. That's number one. Number two, we have to overcome the real irony of living in America. America, we promote everything. We're the number one marketer on planet Earth. And ironically enough, we also are based on the Puritan ethic. And the Puritan ethic says you don't brag about yourself. You don't promote yourself. So there's this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde coexistence that we have. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense.
Yeah. So that's what you're up against. You're up against that Puritan ethic where we don't promote ourselves. And so let me answer your question. I ask questions first. So for example, right now I've got 5 proposals upstairs in my hotel room. And people now, first of all, $15,000, we're getting into that range where we're out of most people's budgets. My next fee structure is going to be $25,000. But I need to be a best-selling author. Right now what I'm doing is I'm put together a proposal. And the proposal is going to have 3 different options in it. It's going to be, number 1, my standard fee, my fee to keep the momentum going, and I call it the Cadillac Escalade with your truck is all tricked out.
Right.
It's got every bell and whistle, if you will. Okay? And I'm going to give them those 3 different options. And I'm going to give the Cadillac Escalade first because, that's going to be the $100,000. My first option is always a 6-figure retainer. If you hire me for a year, let's solve the problem permanently. Let's not just do a patchwork. And I think holistically. I don't think in terms of delivery mechanisms, and this is one of the problems that most speakers and Toastmasters, people think in terms of delivery mechanisms. A speech, a webcast, etc. These are all delivery mechanisms. But what do people really want? They want answers. They want solutions. So I want to have a conversation about solutions. How can we fix this problem permanently? I want to have that conversation. I don't want to have a conversation about delivery mechanisms. And then if they buy into the solution, oh yeah, by the way, here's different ways that we can deliver this. We can deliver this live in the form of a keynote spread out throughout your entire organization. We can deliver this one-on-one. We can deliver this through a webcast. We can deliver this through etc. And that's the different options that I present to the customer and the client. I ask them, what's the cost of the problem? And either anecdotally or they have a specific problem. For example, salespeople, they can tell you, we lost a $50,000 deal. Okay, or it's a $50 million deal. If it's a $50 million deal, guess what? 6 figures doesn't mean jack. Will you pay me $100,000 if I can help you win the next $50 million deal? Absolutely. So you got to have business conversations with people, not just talking about a fee. And you got to understand, why are they doing this in the first place? So I told you this earlier. I started off in the consulting space.
Right.
So that's my mindset. I want to diagnose before I prescribe, and then after I've diagnosed and you've given me a monetary figure, and that monetary figure must exceed. It must have a 10x. Like for example, if my fee is $15,000, then the value of that must be 10x that. That's just the number I go with.
Right.
And if it is, then I have a shot in terms of them paying that fee. So I'm having a business conversation, I'm having a financial conversation, but I'm never having a conversation about a delivery mechanism. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Something else you talked about this morning was memorize to internalize.
Okay. So there's different phases that we go through. So when I work with my coaching clients, phase 1, we have to come up with the script. We have to come up with the idea, the content. And we're going to write and rewrite and write and rewrite and write and rewrite. And publishing is called the sloppy first copy. Mm-hmm. So when we get out that sloppy first copy, we want to test it in front of an audience. We're going to videotape that. We're going to have it transcribed, and we're going to edit again. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Now, eventually what's going to happen is we've got what we want. So once we've completed that, then and only then are we going to start working on the memorization. And memorizing means that I remember the words, but you're still in your head. Okay, what sentence comes next? What part comes next? That's what I mean by memorization. Internalization, you know it cold. I can wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Give me part 3, and you can give it to me right then and there. I know it so well. Like for example, at today's presentation, someone's phone went off.
Yeah.
And so that always is going to happen. Someone's always going to forget to turn off their phone. It always happens. You can either get upset, or you can anticipate. It's predictable. It's going to happen.
Right.
So why wouldn't you prepare for that? And in that case, I say, hey, just hold my calls. Just tell them I'm busy. Yeah. And I got to laugh. Now, and at the same time, I think I preserved I protected the individual. That guy didn't mean to do that on purpose. He just forgot, or maybe didn't press the right button. He wasn't deliberately trying to upset the presentation. So I want to protect that individual. And the guy came up to me and apologized. He said, no apology was necessary. Right. It happens to us all. It's just don't even worry about it. But it was predictable. So I know this presentation so well, it's internalized. Something can happen, it won't throw me off my game. And that's the difference between memorization and internalization.
But there was an article recently saying that speakers should memorize their speeches. But I think what you're saying, though, is your philosophy of memorizing gives you creativity.
Yes.
To be able to have those one-offs. Phone goes off.
So in this case, in my speech, I talked about Darren. I says, Darren, okay, this speech for the international competition is not going to work. I want you to come up. There is a problem where you have the solution. There's someone suffering in silence. And I want you to think about what that is, and let's create a speech around that the following day. Well, Darren answered the call. So in this case, I heard Margaret talking about that, and because I said to myself, hey, I can use that. I made a mental note of that.
Right.
And Darren answered the call, so I can actually tie my presentation into her presentation. So the benefit, it starts with the base, the foundation is memorizing it.
Right.
But you want to know it so well that it becomes conversational. For example, person after person after person came up to me. It's just like, wow, that just seemed like it was table topics. No, everything was planned. I memorized every segment. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I was practicing and rehearsing. I had some new content, some new lines I wanted to test out. I said to myself, okay, I need reps, and repetitions, I should say. Right. I need repetitions. And I was practicing and rehearsing. I was practicing. Can I say it this way? Can I say it this way? Right. Etc. And I left it upstairs, and I literally wrote it down on a card. I want to make sure that this point got across. But the foundation is memorization. But if you know it so well, you can come in and out of your presentation. You can customize. You can add an element that's there in front of you. And that's what I mean by you can't do that if you're just in memorization mode.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree, because it comes off so robotic.
Yes.
And if you had a different personality or a different mindset in that phone going off, you would be seeing red.
Yes. And by the way, the real irony of the presentation is I have a choice. Phone goes off. Do I see red or do I see the white?
Yes.
I choose the white.
Right. Something else I noticed, and just, the big buzzword is brand. Mm-hmm. I noticed with Darren, and was this already said, he wore the same outfit.
Okay.
Is that part of his brand? Because that suit was the same suit. The two.
Oh, dear. I've never had that conversation with him, but you're absolutely right. Well, just last week we were in Lafayette, Louisiana. Same suit. I'm thinking, I think this is his brand, because in all photos that you see where he's on the stage, that's his. It's a black suit, custom made. Very, very tailored, with the black tie. So I think that is his brand. I meant to ask him about that, actually he's in Saudi Arabia as we're speaking right now. I'll ask him about that. But I think that is his brand. So he's for a 27-year-old, he's very.
It's my brand. Right
there you go.
there.
I love the tie with your. And for those of you who are listening, it's a tie with his family members and photos on the tie. So that's very nicely done.
All right, there's a story I heard. I want to get if it's true or not.
Okay.
When you won the International Speech Contest in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, you were at breakfast.
Okay.
And somebody said to you your exact time.
Yes. So I was sitting at a table. Actually, it was that afternoon.
Okay.
When I won the world championship, everything was a blur. So I spent 2 hours literally signing autographs. I had no idea. I just thought, you get your trophy, you go home. That's it. And all of a sudden, people just rushed, and it was amazing, all these things I was signing. So I'm sitting at lunch, and there were several of the other contestants who were sitting at the table. And then these two guys walked up to me, and then one guy throws a piece of paper down, and on one of the pieces of paper, one piece of paper said 7:29, the other says 7:30. I'm saying, look, I don't get it. What are these? We're not supposed to tell you this. We're the timers. This is your official time. Had you sneezed, you would have been disqualified. And they just walked away. So as a matter of fact, I have at least one of those pieces of paper in one of my journals. Yeah. And I got it. Well, here's another part of the story. When I practice my speech, 6 minutes and 10 seconds. Sometimes 6 minutes and 13 seconds. When I got on that stage, people laughed in spots they never laughed before. They laughed longer than they did before.
Time ticking away.
Time's ticking away. And when you're on the big stage, you have the spotlights in your eyes. I saw the green light, never saw the yellow light. When I saw the red light, I did not know when or how long it had been on. I'm panicking. I'm asking myself, oh my God, this year-long work is about to go down the drain. And thank God for Mark Brown. Mark Brown said, have an emergency ending. So when I saw the red light, I said to myself, okay, I'd never practiced this before. This is a place to end it, and I ended the speech. So I literally cut off the last paragraph of my speech. Now, if you watch the video, you will see when I'm shaking the Toastmaster's hand, I am not a happy character. As a matter of fact, I thought I had just been disqualified.
Right.
So I walk off stage, and I'm completely distraught. I can't believe I got disqualified. I can't believe this. And I'm sitting there, and then as soon as I sit down, all the people around me, hey, that was a great speech. You won. And everyone's telling me how well I did, and I'm just inconsolable. And there's two announcements at the World Championship. Announcement number one, before they announce the winner, is, were there any disqualifications? That's the announcement I was listening for.
Right.
And they were saying, and they announced that there was no disqualifications. I didn't even know if I won. I didn't even care. I didn't want to be disqualified. At that point, that was my only goal. So later on, when I won, I was completely taken by surprise. I really, really was, because I went from this emotional low to the point where I thought I'd been disqualified to, the other extreme of having won it, and it was severe. Yeah.
Margaret Page said to me how much Toastmasters has changed her life.
Oh, man.
Obviously, it is really, think about the path that it has taken you.
Oh. I'll still be in corporate America today, probably. Working some corporate gig.
Miserable?
I don't know. I was pretty good at what I did. I kind of fell into the computer industry. It wasn't a plan. But I think this suits my skills better, because I've always been an artist. I won 2 scholarships in the Art Institute in Chicago. The first one I was 9 years old. The second one I was 13 years old. When I was 13, I actually won an adult scholarship. I actually beat out other adults. So I've always been in this creative space. And that being said, having come from a poor, African American background, it was always drilled into me, you will get a job. You'll get a good paying job with a good paying salary and get excellent benefits. That was always the mantra. So I was never encouraged to pursue that, and no disrespect or judgment against my family. They didn't want me to suffer like they had gone through. So I completely get it. And I have no regrets about my computer experience or my executive experience. That everything helped to make me where I am today. So I have no regrets with regard to that. So I'm not going to judge it and say I would be miserable, because it's impossible to determine that. Right. I don't miss office politics. Don't miss that at all. I don't miss, and I got to tell you, I was exhausted towards the end of my corporate career, because I had so many employees who worked for me. I felt I was a father or a referee. And I felt I was involved in so many different disputes where I felt like I was the judge, etc. So that part was exhausting. I don't miss that part at all.
Well, we also want to mention you're a Sox fan.
Yes. Hey, of course.
I still love you.
Hey, go Cubs. Congratulations for the Cubs. I'm finally glad they got it. By the way, my great-grandfather was a religious Cubs fan. He watched the Cubs every single game, you name it. He would watch the Cubs, and unfortunately, he passed away many years ago, and I'm sure he was watching above when the Cubbies finally bought one home. So
it's funny. I remember I have vivid memories of my great-grandfather walking by his room with the little black and white TV, watching the Cubs game.
Yep.
Oh, yes. When you first joined Toastmasters, the first speech you give is the icebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this before from other Toastmasters. Your first speech, and I want to hear your opinion, your first speech and last speech should be the same. To see how you've developed and grown from that first speech to your 10th speech.
That's an interesting premise. I've never viewed it that way. I do remember my icebreaker, and I still use it to this day. As a matter of fact, it's called a wake-up call. And long and short of it is, I was in the earthquake in Northridge, California. And the lessons learned from that, being in a hotel thinking you're about to die. And it just makes you very reflective. Your values become crystal clear. And so the keynote speech I gave in Washington, D.C. last year, that icebreaker was actually reincorporated into that presentation. So, for example, I have a segment called Connecting the Dots, and it's based on the Steve Jobs aphorism. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So I actually took the beginning part of that segment is my actual icebreaker, a streamlined version of that, because it fits so nicely with that theme and that idea. So going back to your original premise, I think I have done that. So my first Toastmasters speech was a wake-up call. Me speaking on the main stage in Washington, D.C. in front of 2,000 Toastmasters. That speech was still integrated in the entire keynote. And I think it has grown. It's if you compare the first version to this version was extremely streamlined. I eliminated a lot of unnecessary items because at the time I thought they were important. And what I've discovered is actually less is more. You don't have to. In a book, you need details, not in a speech. As a matter of fact, the less details you have, the better the speech is.
Power of three.
What's that?
Power of three.
Yes. And let the audience is smart. They're intelligent. Let the audience use their own intelligence. Let them fill in their own blank. Let them paint their own canvases as to what the characters look like and what the scene looks like. You don't have to spell it out.
Who's your mentors at your level these days?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I'm in a place where I need to reach out and get mentors again. Because mentors have been instrumental in helping me throughout my entire career. For example, my first mentor is a gentleman by the name of Mark Sanborn. Mark Sanborn, for those of you unaware, just go to marksanborn.com. There's a book called The Fred Factor. Just Google Fred Factor. It'll come up everywhere. 2 million copies sold worldwide. And I believe the subtitle is How to Turn the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. Something similar to that.
I have an autographed copy of Fred 2.0
at
home from Mark.
And Mark I reached out to him. I remember my first NSA meeting, he was a speaker, and I said to myself, that's the best speaker I've ever seen live.
Was that here in Colorado?
Yeah, here in Colorado. Okay. It was a National Speakers Association meeting. And I remember reaching out to him. I said, you are the best speaker I've ever seen live. I aspire to do what you do one day. I have no idea how to do that. I have no idea how I can help you, but I'd like to offer you help first. And I said, I'm a sales guy, so if there's somehow you can use my sales skills, I just don't want to be what I call a brain picker. Hey, can I get a cup of coffee and pick your brain? you have no idea how many people do that.
Right.
And I think what made me different is I was of service first for him. So for a year, I worked in his office for free, and I dialed for dollars for him. So he gave me a list, and I would just cold call. And we got a couple of deals, and at his fee structure, that was significant. So, and it also taught me how to ask for, like going back to your original question, how to ask for a high fee with no hesitation. It's all value based.
So no mentors right now, but how about, and it doesn't have to be in the speaking world, but who do you look up to help you grow?
Oh, okay. I still reach out to Mark Sanborn, and I wouldn't say like on a regular basis. So some of my mentors have been Alan Weiss.
Great books.
Every piece of advice he's ever given me has made me literally millions of dollars, and that is not an exaggeration. That is an absolute fact. The man is an absolute genius. He's brilliant.
I'm going to tell you, I have his Milliardar Speaking and Milliardar Coaching books. Those are brilliant books because you don't have to have the credentials to do what your passion is.
Yes.
That's what I loved about Alan's books, is that you can do it. Just go, like you were saying, the first sale is to yourself.
Yeah, and that's an Alan Weissism.
Exactly.
Patricia Fripp has been a big-time mentor, and she's a very good friend to Alan Weiss. We've been business partners for about 9 years. So she's definitely been a mentor. She's a person who, the thing I like about her is Patricia will pull me aside and she says, Ed, is this an idea or a concept that was that what you're really trying to say? So she forces me to be precise and to be accurate, to choose my languaging. She's given me very good advice financially, etc. So she's been a real a mentor, and she's a person I would recommend in a heartbeat. She still sends business my way. For example, one of my coaching clients right now, who's in the semifinals in the World Championship of Public Speaking, came from her. So she's been a mentor. The person who got me involved in Toastmasters in the first place is a lady by the name of Nancy Spurry. Nancy's a really good friend of mine, and we just had dinner just the night before last, etc. So she one who told me about the Toastmasters. Randall Shelton, who's a founder of Cherry Creek Toastmasters. He's a person who literally hounded me to compete. I had no interest in this whatsoever. I like going to the club, and that was it. And he's just there. For those of you who follow Toastmasters, there's a world champion, and the line is, "I see something in you. I don't know what it is,
right?
But there's something there." Well, he literally said those words to me. And the cool thing about mentors is they see something in you that you can't even see at the end of your own nose. That's the cool part about mentors. So I actually have a mastermind group right now that's in Las Vegas, and we get together on a monthly basis. But I really need someone who's at a success level greater than mine, because I've always sought out people who are at levels greater than myself, and that way I move forward. You know what? I do have a current mentor. His name is Gary Ryan Blair, and the reason I bring up his name is because I think of him more as a pal. And here's a person who runs if you go to 100daychallenge.com, the number 100daychallenge.com. Here's a guy who has a program that brings in $27 million a year. So he's definitely a mentor. I aspire to be like Gary, and he's the one who's actually helping me change my business model. For example, he's pointed out to me that how I coach people 101 is not scalable. So over the next year or so, we're going to transition into more of a group model, or look at different ways as to how I can provide the same amount of value on a scaled basis.
It's funny you say it. I was just at a workshop, and they were saying the same thing, that the one-on-one model, it's not scalable.
Yeah. By the way, because of technology, you can no longer just wear your pajamas. You actually have to dress up now.
What? I better put pants on next time.
Yeah, either that, if you got some shorts on, just never get up from your seat.
Yeah, I remember when I worked in radio, there was one radio station where the TV station was in there, and we would hear stories of the anchors just wearing suit, shirt and tie, and then shorts underneath or jeans, because he never would stand up.
Yes. Good point. Good point.
How were you at first when you first joined Toastmasters? Because again, seeing you in person today, seeing your videos, it does seem very natural. You do have that charismatic approach. You do engage your audience. You do have great humor, and it does seem very improvisational.
Mm-hmm.
So how were you when you first joined?
There's a lady by the name of Christy Ward. And Christy approached me, and she says, I'd like you to work for a company called CareerTrack, which used to be based out of Boulder, Colorado. For those of you who are tuning in, it used to be the largest training company in the world.
Yep.
And Christy said, and I said, well, what exactly do you want me to do? And she told me, and I said, I don't think so. She says, well, why not? I said, well, most speakers, I see, they're boring. I don't want to be like that. And she says, that's the reason I approached you. I saw you do this presentation. We want you to do that. So I said, do you want me to be myself? And she said, yeah. She was the first person who said, it's okay to be yourself. Now, it's evolved to a point where that's what I get paid for now. The more I am Ed, the more money I make. So I feel comfortable with that. I think that's always been my style. You mentioned radio. I was a disc jockey for 4.5 years, during drive time, 3 to 7 p.m. So that we have a lot of creativity. Sometimes we cross the line. I was suspended 3 times.
I was fired.
I was suspended. I should have been fired one time. I really should, but my ratings were so high. I think that's the only thing that saved me. But I was suspended for a month without pay. That was a pretty big deal. And,
especially in radio, because it's low pay and all the CDs you can take home.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think my background prepared me. I think specifically my radio background prepared me, because we're used to talking to people off the cuff. We talk to our audience members as if they were there in our studio, or we're doing live remotes, and that's when you really are talking to people. So that's always been my style. I don't think it was a conscious thing, but I wanted to be the same way I am right now. Is the same way I want to be on stage. I don't want to be, I call it speaker man or speaker woman. Have you ever seen this? Maybe you're having a conversation with the individual off stage, and then they hop on stage and they're a completely different person. I admire Margaret's style. Margaret is the same person you saw on stage, it's the same person you interviewed with, and she's the same person off stage. That's what I aspire to be. I aspire to be like Margaret.
That's all I got for you.
Okay.
You got anything for me?
No. This was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Ed Tate, this is an honor to be able to finally, again, like I told you on the phone, we met at CSA, and again, you were just like this, warm, inviting, and I was just like,
well, I'm being like Margaret.
Yeah. And you accept my LinkedIn invitation years ago, so.
Well, thank you for doing this, and I can't wait to hear it.
Me too.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Need a picture, though.
Okay, sure.
Somehow.